few observations on other aspects of democracy, because it's not just about elections. The press in Africa is deteriorating. Freedom House, in their Freedom in the World report released a few weeks ago, recognizes only 3 countries that have a free press in sub-Saharan Africa: Mauritius, Cape Verde, and Sao Tome. There is not one continental African country which Freedom House codes right now as having a free press. Ghana, which was the single example, was downgraded this past year, in part because of violence against journalists, including the first murder of a journalist in 20 years. The formal press is facing some real challenges, and part of the rise of this soft authoritarianism has been governments learning that they can censor press in a variety of ways. Not so much closing newspapers or instituting the one-party newspaper, the one radio station of the old bad days, but a more subtle censorship which the international community is willing to tolerate. Social media, of course, referred to so far in this meeting, but not explored in great deal, is exploding across Africa. And you all know the numbers, with cell phone and now smartphone penetration increasing markedly. It's changing too fast for us to get a real firm understanding on what's happening and try to figure out the implications for a democracy. I will say that there is significant evidence that Africans use Twitter differently than at least Americans do. They're much more likely to get political news from Twitter, perhaps because their own national press are not very good. And to some extent, the explosion of social media is a remedy for the deterioration of traditional presses, because people can get their news from elsewhere, or they get their news from the BBC, Voice of America, New York Times, whatever, but it may not cover their local stories. Still, the information landscape is evolving very quickly. We used to believe, of course, that there was no way the governments could stop all of this. I remember President Clinton saying that no government could stop electrons coming across its borders. We now know differently. Freedom House once again estimates that freedom on the net is deteriorating, in part because countries like China, Russia, and Iran are selling technical solutions to African countries, among others, that allow them to monitor social media much better than before. And African countries also have figured out that they have the recourse of the traditional methods of beating up bloggers, tweeters, and the like, whose posts that they do not like. So it has not been the case that social media has just simply been a liberating force. And of course, we saw in the Ugandan election, now repeated across much of Africa, that leaders will just turn off social media if they don't like it.